Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Matthew Hendershot. I am the video editor, post-production guy for the Talks at Google team. And for the past year, I've also served a very personally satisfying role as director for the original online series, Songs of the Road. Joining me here today to talk more about SongCraft Presents and Songs of the Road are the stars of the show, Ben Arthur, singer-songwriter, radio host Rob Reinhart, and producers Al Houghton and Mike Crehore.
Thank you.
Good morning, guys.
Morning.
Why don't we go down the line and you guys can just personally introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about your background and what your role is with the show.
Sure. My name is Ben. I do the songwriting. So we bring in an artist and I sit down with them and write and record a song in a very brief period of time.
I'm Rob Reinhart. I host a syndicated radio program called Acoustic Cafe. We're in our 21st year, and in this project, I drove the car. I played the bald guy. Look at all his hair up here. And
not that he's self-conscious or anything.
And along the way, have done some interviews with the artists that are involved in the SongCraft project.
I'm Al Houghton, musician, producer. I have a studio downtown called Dubway Studios, and we're involved in producing the music that the songwriters write.
And I'm Mike Crehore, and I was partners with Al at Dubway Studios. That's how we met up with Ben originally, and helped to produce the music and capture it in whatever strange place we need to capture it in. So.
Now, Rob, as you said, you've been doing Acoustic Cafe for over 20 years.
Yeah.
What brought you into this situation where you were starting back over the brand building process in a whole new medium, that of online video, and with a whole new group of people? Us.
Yeah, and actually, it's interesting. I have been turning down video options since the late 90s. People who have come along and said, you really ought to have stuff on video. This is probably 1997, 98. And the reason I wanted to get involved with this project was that it specifically was not going to be the thing that I wanted to avoid, which was yet another series of guys and girls with guitars in high definition playing their songs. I just thought the web was sort of glutted with that, and I didn't see any reason to contribute to it. I didn't see how it would extend my brand any. What I was interested in doing was something that had a narrative, something that presented a new story. It wasn't just an artist doing what they do on my radio program, but with pictures. Instead, it actually had a story to it. And so that's what was such an attractive thing when Ben sort of threw this idea out there. It was an interesting way to tell a new story. That's why.
Nice.
Yeah.
So this was about 2013 when the conversation began for us to start working together. But we had been doing this narrative approach for quite a bit more than that. Ben, why don't you talk about how the three of you, and then ultimately I got involved in that, came about?
Yeah, so for a couple of years we had been just throwing artists together in the guy's studio and writing songs with them with John Wesley Harding and Ximena Sarinana and a whole bunch of other folks. And we needed to grow our ability to distribute that and to bring in great artists. And Rob knows everyone, all the artists.
From the video standpoint, when we all got together and started doing this, we wanted to tell it as like a reality TV show, but we knew we were not going to be on TV at first, so it was all about being online, trying to find a way to publish it online. I think some of the first ones we published in 5 parts.
Yeah.
And so we could keep the size down and keep it contained to something that people would watch. And then we also did it in Dubway Studios, your studio downtown. So we had a little bit of a contained studio space as well, right? Mm-hmm. Why don't you guys talk about the process that we were going through back then and how it all came together as a show?
Well, initially, it was pretty small-minded. It was like, wow, how do we get more, studio hours in the studio? But then it became obvious that this is actually way more interesting and cool than that. So by putting songwriters who don't know each other at all, there's a drama element automatically. And we did not know how that would manifest or what would happen at all. In fact, we were thinking almost more technically, people be interested in like what mic you use and how you use the software and all this stuff. And as it evolved, it became more apparent that actually the dynamic of the songwriting is much more the cool story, and the other stuff became less and less critical as we went on.
So, 2013, South by Southwest, we decided to go down and take a crack at it. How did that go?
Well, you know, actually, so you guys started in '09 doing this at Dubway?
Somewhere in there.
Because it was '09 that you first brought this idea to me, and I think I said, well, I don't see any money in it. And not to be totally mercenary about it, but it really was like, you know, to really do this well, I think that it's going to require a lot. And for 2013, the key to going down there was being able to make sure that we weren't just doing this, paying for it out of our own pockets, and having a go at it. We were not part of the festival. We were doing this kind of rogue. It was a rogue project. We got a condominium on Riverside, and we just set up, and we invited people to come. And we kind of cobbled together from some independent sources, you know, just people who would advertise on the radio program, would underwrite the videos, would get, you know, placement within the videos, which sort of started us down that path. So being able to pay for it, and nobody lost any money on that, and we were able to pay our artists a little bit of money to participate, it sort of changed the dynamic a little bit and made it something that we were all working towards in a different way than just doing it for fun.
And the songs were awesome.
The songs were fantastic.
Yeah, it's
4 of them.
Was it 4 or was it 3?
4.
I want to touch back on something. We got a condominium. You mentioned that. And Al, you went down the first year.
No, Mike.
I did not.
Mike, you went down the first year to do that. Talk about leaving, you know, multi-million-dollar Dubway Studios facility and going down to record these things in a condo.
You kind of have to think outside of the box a little bit, and but you know, the whole world has come to this guerrilla recording thing and embraced it. I mean, you just look at YouTube and anything else. Everybody is both recording and taking video and doing it themselves. And Al and I both came, even though we had a beautiful studio to work in, we came from a do-it-yourself background. So early on, we were, you know, before they had computers, we were working with 2 tracks and 4 tracks and 8 tracks and 16 tracks, whatever we could afford to kind of get the process going. So for me, it was pretty invigorating to go, hey, Ben saying, hey, let's go to South by Southwest and do this thing. And I'm like, yeah, okay. So we took a couple of small interfaces down with us. I think we had 4 inputs. We were working in a condominium, which meant, Ben, you have to get up now because the guys are going to be here in a half hour, and we've got to move your bed out of the living room and put it into the bedroom so we can work. And but it was nice, and everybody who came were in it for getting the best song they could get in the moment. And when that happens, it just makes the process easy. I mean, later on we had to take the things back to the studio and enhance some of the productions a bit, which is also fun for me because I get to play a lot of instruments and put on a lot of different hats. But it was great. I mean, you just have to capture that moment when Ben and this artist get the kernel of a song. And I think Rob, that first year, he was saying, you know, he's sweating. He's going, I don't know if this is going to work. Does this really work? Is this really going to work?
Something I continue to do to this day.
And so go ahead, tell them.
Well, we should point out though, and we should just make it very clear that what we were doing was trying to create a brand new song from nothing in about a 3-hour period of time with these artists. We didn't have them for long. We just had them for a few hours. We were working in a space that really was not much larger than this stage.
No, it was probably.
You put the kitchen there. That's
Right,
it. This was the condo we were working in. And everybody brought different ideas. I mean, some brought no ideas whatsoever. I mean, they really just, Ben and the artist staring at each other for a second. Now we go. And we were capturing it on video and audio. And yeah, it was a little scary.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, and I think one of the things for me on the video direction standpoint that was important was always telling the real story and then focusing on that creative moment. One of the things that we talk about as creative people is like demoitis, or that, you know, when the first time you draw a picture, the first time you do something, you're like, oh, this is perfect. And then the more you work on it, you get further and further away from that initial charge. And I know that that's a big philosophy of yours too, Mike, is like catch it in that first time. So I think that we really embrace that going down to say, this is the situation, this is the reality of it all, right?
Yeah, and the songs aren't meant to be necessarily, like, you know, sometimes a live song goes on an album, and you know, some of the falling apart is beautiful, but the mess, you know, is really compelling, and the fear and the excitement of trying to remember the lyrics and trying to play it right is present and adds heightens the song. So you know, we've had artists come on the show and write a song with us, and then re-record it for their record. You know, get in a studio and take their time. But that freshness is exciting.
So we have a video clip of our first year down to South by Southwest, and this features an artist from upstate New York named Rowe, who came in and with a really kind of haunting melody and idea for a song that came together and was sort of one of our biggest successes
That year, yeah.
completion
And
song.
also, he was the first one.
Yeah.
And so
The
he
very
was,
first one. Yeah.
He was the first one at South by. So as Rob and I were going, is this going to work? As soon as he opened his mouth, and you'll hear this, we went, oh, yeah, this is great.
And the fun thing about the song is that he'd been working on this chord sequence and this melodic idea that he brought for 7 years. He'd been trying to finish this song and brought it to us, and it was like, yeah, we can, yeah, this is great. And a lot of creativity is about, you know, making choices, and that's what we sort of specialize in.
So 7 years of creativity crammed into 3 hours of actually getting it done. Let's take a look at the clip.
I had talked to Rob with Acoustic Cafe about doing this project and said, you know, he said, well, if we can only get 3 hours, is that enough? And I was like, yeah, absolutely, that's enough. And yet there was a part of me that was terrified. The song got finished very quickly. Like within less than an hour, we had the song down. The first time I heard Sean play the song through, it was, I mean, it's really a charge.
I didn't have the heart to sell it, so I just gave your coat away. I took it to the Salvation Army, where holy garments go to pray. I gave you my last drop of feeling. I made myself a shepherd's pie, and I've been sleeping in my blue jeans. I comb my hair to the other side. I had a dream we were together. My baby blue, your boy in black. But when you see your mother in Chicago, tell her I'm happy to give you back.
So that was one of the pieces from the 2013 trip to South by Southwest. Again, came from nowhere except 7 years worth of ideas, and then 3 hours later it was that song. One of the other artists that we worked with in 2013 was an artist by the name of Steve Poltz. Steve Poltz is one of those names that you don't know that you know, but he is actually the writer, one of the co-writers behind Jules' smash breakout hit, You Were Meant for Me. So we got to write with Steve Poltz and then stayed in touch with him, and that led us to another interesting opportunity that being Folk Alliance and our first foray into actual broadcast television.
But let's pause a moment and say that the song that we wrote with Steve was called "Your Mama Has a Tramp Stamp."
Yeah. At South by, they wrote the Tramp Stamp song. Very fun, bouncy.
Yeah, which he
I don't
then,
have that on.
Yeah, that's right. Which he then that night played live in front of 300 people at a club and crowd surfed.
Made them sing it. Great.
It was amazing.
So we stayed in touch with him, and there's a festival called Folk Alliance that happens in Kansas City every year. And through, I don't know, you explain to me the conversations that took place, how we connected with the next step.
So I was speaking with a couple of folks at PBS because we've been connected to some of the folks at the national level, and one of the folks there suggested we speak to the local PBS station, and because we had been talking about expanding into what we thought could be a half-hour show, I suggested that we maybe try to collaborate on something, and she said, "Yeah, sure. We'll give you a crew, and we'll take care of the capturing of it, and because that's expensive to get folks. We were flying folks from New York, and we found a bar, and Al and I went out there and put it together."
Cool. And that turned into a half-hour episode, which aired on KCPT, which is the Kansas City affiliate for PBS. We have a clip of that too that we'd like to show you.
I do like time limits, because if you have to write and you give yourself a deadline, it's not always good. There's no rules to this. I gotta go. My ride's here. Something about the world not being fair.
Or-
the very
or-
first time I touched your hair, you know what I mean? As a little child, like just wishing the best for them.
Yeah, it's nice.
You know what I mean?
I do. I got little girls. That worked for me.
Okay, that worked. Let's go
Yeah.
with that. Tomorrow? No, we've got to have that in there. He was crying.
I'm not crying. You're crying.
I'm Barbara Walters. I'm getting it out of him.
You're crying.
Mama, don't you waste no prayers on me. By now I'm the man I'm always gonna be. If I could pull the truck out of the ravine, no one needs to know except you and me. No matter what I say, I know you're always gonna pray. Tomorrow, son, I'll stop praying for you. I won't ask my God to change what you do. I'll just remember how I used to brush your hair as I say the last prayer.
So right after Folk Alliance, then, again, is South by Southwest. And having taken on a half-hour version of our show and completed the year before what we thought were pretty successful forays into it, we had a good bit of momentum, feeling pretty confident, had a bit more of a brand weight, and so going back down to South by Southwest in 2014, we struck out a little bit bigger. Why don't you guys talk about the 2014 South by?
Well, from my perspective, if you went back to the fall of 2013, I actually ran into a couple of guys who booked the festival, and somehow they had heard about this rogue effort that we had put together in 2013. I don't know how. And they said, would you be interested in becoming actually part of the festival in 2015? We're like, yeah, sure, that'd be great. So they set us up with a panel. So we knew that at the end of the week, we would be able to actually present, much like we're doing here, be able to present the work that we did as an actual part of the festival. Plus we got the badge. That was kind of nice too. And then we turned this into, then suddenly that homespun effort of 2013 where we cobbled together just enough to meet our expenses, suddenly we were confronted with a budget and branded content.
Yeah, so through a friend of a friend, we ran into someone from Subway, and they asked us if we'd be interested in working with them as sponsors, and it was like, and you will give us money? Okay, then yes.
I think at the time they were doing a big thing with South by that was all about fresh, get fresh, get fresh, and so one of the angles we played was it doesn't come much fresher than a song that was written 3 hours ago. That's pretty fresh. It's okay. We also had the opportunity. We did 7 of the songwriting sessions over the course of 5 days.
5 days. Yeah. Wow.
And we hit probably the highest mark on, aside from Ben, of course, on the talent scale, which was Mercury Prize nominees Turin Breaks, who came in and joined us. We do have a clip of that as well, and also a really great show. So if we can roll that clip.
When it's just the two of you for so long, it can be quite isolating and quite bare in a way. And the minute someone else starts throwing things in, but you respond with better ideas as well. It's not like you're just sitting there letting other the whole thing grows. And you talk about maturity, but we have finally grown up as a band. Like, it's taken us a long time to get to the point where we can relax and go, this really works. Let's have fun. Let's invent the future together.
Hitchhiker's dream, the skyline seem a million more moving moments. Another town, another time. Worlds away on a fault line. International. Hope I catch my breath. Into next year. Haven't got there yet. A halfway house. This liminal space, slowly taking on a criminal face. International.
So a couple things for me with that one in particular that I really enjoy, and with all of the ones from that South by, is that was our first foray into real branded content. Paid ad placement, but we were able to do it in such a way to where the ads are baked into the videos. So you just saw a commercial for Subway, Chaotica, Taylor Guitars, and a handful of other sponsors as well, but we were able to present it in a different way than just commercials. And that's always been something that's been important to me from the director side, is like, we don't want to fall across that line and be like Ace of Cakes, which is a joke we made often. And then the other bit was, I'm pretty sure that the word liminal was placed in that song on a bet, right?
I think so, yeah.
So 7 songwriting sessions at 2014 South by, plus the half-hour episode. That was basically my 2014. I was in the edit bay, constantly getting that going. What else was going on the brand front through 2014?
Well, an interesting thing coming out of the South by Southwest experience, that budget from Subway allowed all of us to attend. We had a full team. We had 7 artists, as you mentioned, a larger place.
Yeah, bigger house.
So there was growth. So we were digs. Nicer digs. That was good.
Better booze.
Didn't
Right. So coming out of the festival, we ran across a publicity person, a PR person in Detroit, who said, gee, this is a great project. Maybe I should take this to friends at Ford, or Team Detroit, actually, their agency. And we really got a one-word response because this is what we pitched. We pitched you would be involved in this like Subway was. And
But
they
we
said,
were like, wait a minute, will you pay us?
okay.
Okay.
But their response was, no. But, it was no, but how do you feel about putting this on the road? And we came back to them with a proposal which really became this Songs of the Road adventure through 2015. And they sat on that for a couple of months, and then they came back and said, let's give it a try. So it was taking the songwriting sessions now, and suddenly we had to move this and make it, we had to literally move it and make it a much larger project and a larger team, and it was amazing.
Well, and the
Lot of work,
property itself is an interesting mix at that point because it is branded content. We are baking in these sort of commercial elements, and then it's a hybrid of like reality TV and documentary, and then packaged to be viewed online. So you look like you had something to.
Oh, but I wanted to say something, as long as we're talking about branded content, just to be very clear, because we're only showing these little clips. One of the things, especially with Ford, they specifically did not want to be involved in the creative element of this project.
It's important to have that bright line.
Yeah, they wanted to make sure that, they said, we were working out of a Ford C-Max energy, and they said, we don't want songs about Ford, we don't want songs about C-Max and hybrids and all that.
They did have one request. They didn't want any songs about car accidents. They were a little funny
Or
about
what
that.
might happen in the back of a car. They said, listen, we'll shy away maybe. But really all they were interested in is that the creative process would at some point involve being in the automobile. Well, if we were on a road trip, we had to be in the automobile. So that was really great. I mean, I was pleasantly surprised by that. I thought that they would want a firmer hand in that. They wanted nothing.
Well, and this whole thing raised a new interesting challenge for you, Al and Mike, in that a lot of the show, or not a lot of the show, a fair amount of the show takes place in a car.
Right.
And then the rest of the show takes place that a car can take you from or to, and rarely is that a recording studio. So how did that change your whole approach to your involvement in the project?
Well, one, mundane but big aspect was in a car where a lot of the dialogue between the songwriters is taking place as they're trying to brainstorm lyrics and stuff. You have to record that and get it clean, and it's hard in a moving car, a little car, sounds funny, and it's hard to monitor because there's only room for so many people in the car, so you don't know what you're recording really. So that was a whole learning curve doing that thing. And then, of course, you don't always know where you're going to end up to record, depending on if you're in Nashville or LA or Detroit or whatever. So the other aspect is the actual music recording and production with whatever artist is, online for that thing the whole day. So that's another aspect of it.
Yeah, and I think it was interesting because we got to kind of decide depending on where we were going to go. We were in Memphis for one recording. We were in Austin for another recording. We were in LA. We were in Woodstock, New York, and we were in Detroit. So in Memphis, which was the first recording, we got to work at Sun Studios, which was this iconic studio, which is now run as a more of a museum, but you can still rent it out at night to do recordings. But when you record there, you record the way they used to record. So it's an 8-track.
No headphones.
No headphones, all in the same room, all analog. So that's a certain kind of sound. When we went to Austin, we piggybacked on South by Southwest 2015 and did a few artists in a condo, but then the artists that we worked with on Songs of the Road, we did that all kind of in a, guerrilla style, ad hoc. But then in LA, we got to go into Village Recorders, which was an amazing, iconic studio. In Woodstock, we got to work in a great studio.
Each new place, sort of brought a new thing.
I mean, one of the elements, given the fact that we're on the road now and we're moving from one place to another and there's cameras all around, and it's a little more disconcerting for the artist, especially the featured artist who's never done this. So when we finally did get to the studio and we had to get a performance, there was a lot more, hey, this is trying to create an environment that's
Right.
nurturing and makes that able to happen. You know, even in South by Southwest, where we could set up in our condo, and we had that set up, and people would come in, but it was a pretty controlled environment, even though we just set it up for that week. But in these situations, okay, here we are in the studio, and at 3 o'clock we're leaving. So we have to look around and see what's going on and what kind of talent we have and what the studio is like, and try to get the best performance out of a very harried artist.
Yeah, at heart, there's a contradiction in the show, which is to say the excitement and the fear is part of what is compelling and fun. You know, the tick, tick, tick element adds to the stakes. But when it comes to actually getting the song down, and writing it for that matter, if the artist is freaking out, then you're going to have a crappy song.
And you're ready for that moment, and all of a sudden it's, hold on a second, we got to get that other camera angle.
Yeah. Yeah. Al tends to take on the role often of like the yogi in the room, keeping everybody calm, keeping the vibe. I just expect him one of these days to walk in with like sticks of incense. Don't worry, it's all going to be okay.
Yeah, take one of these.
I think we have a clip from the first episode of our partnership. This features a Nashville artist, Lera Lynn, who recently has seen some success on
True Detective, yeah. She starred in it, and they used a song that she co-wrote with Roseanne Cash and T-Bone Burnett.
And next time, a song that she co-wrote with us, right?
Yeah, totally.
We're working on that. So if we could show the Lara Lynn clip.
I'm Lara Lynn. I am a singing songwriter from Nashville, Tennessee. I have no anxiety about writing the song or recording the song. I'm really excited. I mean, that's what this is all about, you know, to get to create music and record it. That's the best part of this job.
So I guess I was wondering about home, you know, just as a sort of starting off place.
So I pictured maybe this couple lying together and pretending that everything is going to be okay, even though they're maybe
it's a breakup. It could potentially be like a story about knowing that it was over.
Someone's been traveling and they're coming home to someone that they don't feel like they're coming home to anymore.
Right. I love it.
Okay.
I love it.
Okay, write it.
Okay.
I'm gonna get some coffee.
Yes.
Just kidding.
I remember when we just obeyed, time spent pulling on an endless thread. I thought I'd come back to just fine. Thought I'd put my faith in space and time. I parked the car, walked through our door, see your face and I'm not home. Oh, I'm not home anymore.
Oh yeah, we forgot about that
Yeah,
little aspect.
right.
So that little deliverable. Al and Mike talked about the fact that we did stop by studios, some really beautiful and iconic studios over the course of this year. But each one of these episodes also had to result in a live performance done using the car as the PA for the performance, which is what you just saw there was a performance we did in a very odd space in Memphis, where we set up and actually had a live audience. Each one of these had live audiences. So there were about 30, 40 people that you didn't see in that shot listening to that performance that was then channeled through the car and recorded that way, right? Additional.
Right.
Yeah.
It was a long day.
It was a long day, yeah.
So the show continued to evolve, and we continued to get better at it, I think, as we went on putting them together. Because now we're doing this whole thing. It's not just like an Ace of Kicks reality show. There's this performance element. So now we're striking out, saying, hey, we can do better than American Idol at having live performances, and we can do better at Ace of Cakes than being, you know, entertaining and telling honest reality instead of whatever that is. I don't even know what that is.
Oh, the nice thing is, you know, you can't eat the cake when you watch one of these baking shows, but you actually get to take the song and live with it separately from the show, which I imagine is also delicious. I hope.
So that pretty much brings us up to the present. We've published 4 episodes of Songs of the Road this year. We have 1 more coming, and it puts us into facing the next year.
Well, there's also the KCPT news.
Oh yeah, flashback. So remember the Steve Poltz piece, the half-hour episode?
Right, so KCPT, PBS station, aired the show and called me a couple weeks afterwards and said, hey, we'd like to put you in for an Emmy nomination. And so I called everybody. I was like, that's okay, right? And to our delight, a couple months later, we got a notification that we'd been nominated for an Emmy. I went to the Emmys, the Mid-America Emmys is what these are called, and sadly we lost to a documentary about the Rams cheerleaders photo shoot. Yeah. No, it's the Rams. It was the Rams.
Was it?
It was the Rams.
I wasn't even a good team.
Yeah, but there are certain things that we can't compete with. You know what I'm saying? And
do our best.
It's fair. It's fair. So anyway, but it actually was an honor to be totally unexpected to be nominated for our first half-hour show. So,
facing that Emmy nomination, brand's bigger than it's been. View counts are higher than they've been. We've continued our, thankfully, touch wood, continued our path of growth. Where does that put us now, facing into the next year?
Well, we have 1 more episode of the Songs of the Road to launch in the next couple weeks, and then hopefully we can figure out a way to continue to grow.
What do you think? We do want to show you guys 1 more clip, and it is a sneak peek of the episode that has not yet aired, so we want to do that. And afterwards, we want to take Q&A. If anybody has any questions, there are Q&A mics in the aisles, please. We'd love to chat with you guys about this stuff. If there's one thing that you could sum up and take away from the past, what is now 6 years of working on this project for some of us, like, what do you think? Stumped him like that.
It's an exciting project. It's fun, and I, as long as the process itself continues to be as exciting and weird and frightening as this is, and as long as we continue, I mean, really, it comes down to the art, right? So if we make a cake, to go back to the cake metaphor, that people take home and listen to, cake listening wise, and it's written and it's rotten, then we fail. At heart, it's a fun challenge, but if the art itself isn't the center, doesn't hold that center, then it doesn't work. And it doesn't work, I think, internally for us too. The art has to have a life and to lift up and to feel like, yeah, that's a good song. Beyond just the time limit, I think as long as that continues to hold true, we're gonna keep doing it.
Yeah, it's an interesting. It was not a quandary, but it was an issue to confront early on, and given all the reality TV that's out there, is you do have this tense situation that can, it can go south with the throwing in the wrong flavors when
of the cake.
Of the cake, yes,
The song cake.
I never should have mentioned the cake.
Yeah, the artist can not get it together. Someone can have a fit. It doesn't take much to blow that vibe. And a TV producer could even argue, yeah, let's screw it up a little bit and have some drama. And who cares if the song, if the artist storms out the door, that's
great.
What we're looking for. That's perfect. But we made a conscious decision. That's not what we're going to do. We are actually going to end up with a really good song at the end. And one of the things that's really heartening about the show, and a surprise to me and probably everybody a little bit, is given all the random elements and everything that goes into this, is how resourceful people are. We're not a big team, and we pull off a show like this, but also the artists who are featured bring everything to bear in a super short amount of time and create what have been really great songs.
Yeah,
It's pretty startling.
Rob and I were talking about that the other day, because for this talk, we kind of went back through the archives, and Matthew had mentioned, do we have all the music in one place? And I said, oh yeah, we should do that. So I put all the music in one place, and you know, we've got about 20 songs now that we've written over the past few years, and they all hold up as individually and collectively as really nice songs, and it's enjoyable, you know. Acoustic Cafe, this is what that program is about. It's about songcraft. Not this songcraft, but it's about the craft of making songs. So I listen to a lot of songs. So 21 years down the road, what I could say about this project, which has been so gratifying, is that there is no template. Every one of these situations is different. I kept thinking that we'd get into a pattern, and the pattern, we would then go and execute the pattern. What's great, what's refreshing, what's fun is that there is no pattern. Every one of these, I think everyone's about to become a spectacular failure right up until the last minute.
It absolutely is.
And then it's awesome, and it's great. One of these days, it may.
I would have put money down that we would have crashed into a wall before this.
But we
I
have.
absolutely would have.
And this new one, you know what? And so every one, I'm just thrilled to get to the next one, to be able to do the segment for the radio program, put it out there on the 100 affiliates that we have, and get it heard in the world. This new one, I can't wait. December 7th. Yeah.
December 7th, the last episode of this year's Songs to the Road will go to air. It publishes on YouTube. We use the YouTube network to publish these things and to share them out and to make them available. And I can say from my standpoint as the director and editor of these things, to put it together, it's always been very important to me to be honest in our storytelling and to show you what is more a documentary of the story unfolding rather than to try and manhandle and manipulate and go that route of reality TV. I think a lot of those shows, they focus even on not even what is the task at hand. You know, they want the bickering and the argument on the side, and whatever the show is about is actually only a couple minutes. And instead, you know, we've tried to put forward an honest telling of, hey, this is what went down. And I think it shows a glimpse into a world that a lot of people don't get to see. Unless you're in that room, unless you're one of the people writing that song, in a normal world, you wouldn't ever get access to this stuff.
Yeah, and that's a funny thing about artists, is that I think a lot of us really love that creative thing that is largely a private affair, you know, like, except for opportunities like this, for the most part, it's done away. But it's one of the things that I get a huge kick out of, and I think a lot of artists get a huge kick out of, and sort of opening up the window on that and sharing that true fear and joy is one of the great pleasures of the show.
Well, and there's a lot of stuff to be learned, I think, about it too. No artists have worked the same way. Some want to do lyrics first, some want to do music first. And then we haven't ever really recorded it the same way. So even if you're into that stuff, you can...
Yeah, every single one has been completely different.
So we will give you a sneak peek of this last little clip. This features a very talented artist, My Brightest Diamond, Shara Warden, who is from Detroit, and we went to Detroit to do it, and it was quite an event.
Yeah, and a brand new style. She wanted to write something and have a DJ manipulate the pieces and then sort of start from that thing which she hadn't yet heard, which we'd never tried before, and we'd never worked with a DJ before. And she also wanted a horn section, so it was...
So here's
up in the ante.
Here's a little tease of the upcoming episode.
Raise your hand if you're ready to go perform it live. Yeah. The shuttle to Eastern Market is leaving.
All right.
I'm driving it.
Have fun. Let's know how it goes.
Okay. I personally feel like the live performance is going to be great.
Wiz is going to do this all live and take that risk, because that brings her to a new level of performance.
The most important thing for me in a live experience is feeling.
It's a really hard part to sing, and I've never sang without a guitar in front of me. I may actually just hold it in front of me like a security blanket, and I've never sang anything this high. We've never had an audience this big, and it's Rob's hometown, and it's some pressure.
The performance is going to be the very first time that all 6 of us are playing the song together, first time in front of people. We are definitely working without a net.
So I encourage you guys, December 7th, that'll be available on our YouTube channel for SongCraft Presents. And guys, anything you want to say before we open it up for questions?
Thank you for taking time.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So much for being here with us. Happily, if anyone has any questions.
Hi guys, I'm Lauren. Thank you for coming. I love your project. I had a quick question. I wondered, how do you guys find your talent and the artists in each of the cities?
Well, we sort of crafted lists. I mean, I'm sort of, for the radio program, I'm in touch with a lot of just people, and when we knew we were going to be in a particular place, they weren't necessarily artists from that city. In a couple of cases, we had that happen, and then in others, you know, people were just going to be at South by Southwest, and if they were going to be there, we would bring them in. You know, we'd extend the invitation. A lot of artists, you know, the key was finding an artist where this project would work for them. We had a lot of artists who said, boy, that sounds like a lot of fun, but I would be terrified to do that. I can't do it. So a lot of people just turned us out, you know, turned us down.
Aesop Rock is a friend of Wiz's, DJ Wiz, and I asked him to ask Ace, and Ace emailed back and was like, I would never stop throwing up. And so it's out of the question.
Right. One of our artists, David Mayfield, he was Nashville based for a long time, but he's now back in his native Ohio. We actually recorded him in Los Angeles, so it was a different kind of a road experience. But the interesting thing was we rented an Airbnb, which turned out to be Roger Miller's house, and Roger Miller wrote King of the Road and a bunch of other great hits. And Roger Miller, as I'm driving around with David Mayfield, David says, I said, you know, we're staying at Roger Miller's house tonight, and he completely broke down. Roger Miller was his boyhood hero as a singer, songwriter, and an entertainer. And so it was just this weird confluence of events that we were staying in Roger Miller's house. We're going to be working at Roger Miller's house.
With an artist from Ohio.
With an artist from Ohio who that was his hero. So it was kind of an interesting thing.
To drill in a little more, Rob's show, he doesn't mention this often, but Rob's show airs for something like 2.5 million people a week. So he gets pitched every artist who has music within the range of stuff that Acoustic Cafe plays. So he's you know, very in touch with what's out there in the world. And so that plus all of our, you know, collective fandoms of various people. And I think all of us have at various points pitched people that we were just like, oh man, I love her. She's amazing. We need to get her on the show. And sometimes it works scheduling wise, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it works as far as the fear vomiting factor, and sometimes it doesn't. But every once in a while we get, you know, the people that we want, and it's a real thrill.
And we also wanted to allow the artist to help to, you know, design the trip. So what would inspire you to create something great? So with Lera Lynn, she was like, well, you know, within a 3-hour road trip, that kind of thing. She said, well, why don't we go to Memphis? And then the whole thought of going to Sun Studios was a real thrill for her. Yeah, I mean, so we wanted people to, Shara Warden, obviously, she wanted to do kind of a love letter to Detroit in Detroit. We opened it up to her. We said, we can go anywhere you want to go. And she said, I want to stay in Detroit. I want to do it there. So that was another part that went into the selection, where they wanted, what would inspire them the most.
Thanks for your question.
Thanks.
Any additional questions?
Hi. Yeah, I got lots of questions, but I guess
Hit us with all of them. We'll take them all.
The one that I'm kind of curious about is just about those choking points when people like just realize, I don't think we can do this in time or anything like that. Have you actually had to extend the clock for people in order to get something done?
Not really.
It's funny. We've actually had to turn the screws on bringing certain things to a close. With the sneak peek episode, the new one that will come out, there was a point where I was kind of running around the studio that we were recording in saying, guys, it's time. We got to go. We got to go. We got to go. And they still wanted to do more vocal takes. You saw him singing in the booth.
I was trying. What usually happens is, we talk to an artist and they're like, well, how long would I need to, maybe the manager, how long would the artist need to be available? We can only give you, 3 hours or whatever. And we say now that we've learned, we'll ask of you 3 hours, but give us an extra 2 hours on the end because your artist will want to spend more time doing this. Your artist will not be happy with the bridge or with the vocal, and they will want to keep playing because really it's genuinely a joy.
Is the time extension mostly then for sort of production type stuff? Like at that point, you've got lyrics and melody and all that stuff down.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I don't think we've ever come up to the end of the clock and not had the song.
Yeah.
The song seems to come together.
Almost.
And I think most of that has to do with Ben. Ben is a really great facilitator in the songwriting process.
Thanks.
And it's true. He'll whatever they're going through, it'll get to a point and he'll bring it to a close. Sometimes he's used the process of, let's go into separate rooms. You bring a verse, I'll bring a verse. And sometimes they just hit off right away.
It's actually something that Matthew's encouraged me to slow down a little bit because the fear gets into me too, even after all this time, and I'll push into territory that maybe if I gave a little more space to the artist, they'd because you see the sort of blank expression, and so I will, out of empathy, if nothing else, try to rush in, and Matthew has been very good about reminding me to, like a good psychoanalyst, let it hang a little bit,
right.
and see if that space, they'll come in and fill that space. Creatively, almost never that I recall, Ben, Sollee, and Aaron McKeown took a little bit longer than some, but usually it's a production that the artist wants to keep polishing.
And
yeah, of course, I could see where
the thing
that
that's
would be
important for Al and I is, I think, is to get a performance of the vocal, because at the end of the day, we may not, if we can get that lead performance,
right.
One that we know we can work with. We're not big proponents of tuning and moving things around and making everything perfect. We're a little more old school. So we want to make sure that performance is something that we can then build a track around.
Right.
And in some cases, we worked with A.J. Croce down in South by Southwest. And we really couldn't do anything to his track. It was such a beautiful, performance of the vocal and the guitar, acoustic guitar, that we didn't want to produce it. We started to produce it, and we went, you know what, this is...
That was the one we saw initially there?
No.
No, okay.
We didn't.
No, you'll have to go online.
You have to go online to see it, but it's just a really, that was all it needed. And for some of the others, we produced them, brought them up a little bit with either drums or bass or some extra guitars or some keyboards, but it's just really getting that vocal, Al.
Yeah, and to your point, these songwriters are professional. If you say, 3 o'clock, we have to go because we have to be at the place where you're actually going to sing the song in front of 40 people, they don't ignore that,
right.
So everyone's working to make it happen.
Yeah.
And then maybe, it would be great to have 15 extra minutes, but sometimes you don't, and you just go with what you got.
Yeah.
Also from a technical standpoint, and I think this applies a bit to Mike and Al as well, but definitely from where I'm coming from the video side, is that we're essentially there to document. So we definitely don't want to be pushing it in any certain way to try and, because then we fall into that just like any other reality TV show, and we're not telling you the honest story anymore. So one of the mottos on set all the time is default to reality. What's really going on? What can we really do? And any times when we've come to the wire where we've had to be like, we don't have any more time, it's because the live performance is scheduled and audience is starting to show up and they're like, well, are they going to show up? Are they going to perform? So a lot of that is reality setting that timeline versus us trying to manipulate the story. And I think that's true a little bit with the songs as well. You guys are just documenting those beautiful moments and then, touching it where you can.
Yeah, we're not very light-handed production.
And as per the artist's instruction.
Yeah.
Essentially, at the end of a recording session, we say, is there anything you want us to augment or add? And then, depending on what they want, we'll do that, send it to them and say, is this right? And sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. And then move on. Because at the end of the day, we're serving that artist's vision. And if the song doesn't sound like the artist and doesn't sound natural, like that's not going to be good for us or them.
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks. You answered a lot of questions.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you very much.
And unfortunately, we're out of time, or we'd take a couple more. If you guys do want to see the full episodes of the shows and everything we've done out, you can go to songcraftpresents.com or go straight to the source and go to youtube.com/songcraftpresents. Thank you guys for taking the time to join me. Thank you as an audience.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Matthew.